Hey guys, thanks for joining us. So as we talked about on the last episode, we're squeezing in all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies before 2017's flashback weekend, which I'll have to look at the calendar, may or may not be happening as this episode comes out, or maybe this will come out the weekend before. Either way, we decided that we were going to squeeze in all of the, well, at least all of the original Nightmare on Elm Street movies in before flashback weekend. And this episode, we are talking about Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Yeah, the 1994 meta slasher type film. This was the pre-Scream Wes Craven. You know, actually, the idea. I know we've probably all of you who are listening to this know about Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and it's, he kind of takes the story into the real world. So the characters are playing themselves, which is kind of an interesting take on it. And everything's very self-aware, and we would get to know more of this with his next film, Scream, or his next horror film. Yeah, this one came out in 1994. I was a senior in high school, and I remember when it came out. And I remember, I don't know if we talked about this on the show or not, or if it was just you and I talking, but we were talking about how we used to grab the newspapers, and you'd see in the entertainment section all the poster art for the movies coming up. And I used to collect those. I'd cut those out of the paper and keep them in a binder or whatever. But I remember when Wes Craven's New Nightmare came out, and the poster was just of this kind of picture of Freddy's eyes. Back that this is pre-internet, and unless you got a chance to grab a Fangoria, you really didn't know what the movie was going to be about. And I remember thinking to myself, I wonder if this is about Freddy, or if those eyes are Freddy, or and it looks like him, but you just didn't know for sure at this time.
I do not remember when this movie came out, but like we said with the last one, I had no interest to see this when it came out in 1994. I don't remember the first time I saw this. I know I've seen this particular one before, but I don't remember when the last time was that I watched it. It's kind of funny. I actually watched it the most recent time, which was probably the first time in several years, earlier today. And as a matter of fact, as I was telling you just a few minutes ago, I actually just finished it up literally 5 minutes before we started recording today. And one of the things that I will go ahead and say, compared to a lot of the most recent ones that we've been talking about, so we've covered all, starting with part 2 up until this, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So whatever, 6 Nightmare on Elm Street movies since we decided to do this, whenever that was, 6 months ago or whatever, 5 months ago. And we've talked about this on air and off air. The first couple of Nightmare on Elm Street movies, or the first few Nightmare on Elm Street movies, part 1, part 2, and part 3, are the ones that we actually enjoy. Part 4, part 5, and then Freddy's Dead, we could care less about those. So I was actually anticipating, when I was going into this one, I kind of had that mindset I gotta watch this stupid movie for the stupid episode before we get started, which was part of the reason why I had put it off, even, to be honest with you. I mean, I could have watched it earlier in the week, and then it was just one of those things, I put it off until the last very minute, and I actually thought I wasn't going to get it watched in time. I thought I was going to have to pull, when we got hooked up and we're recording, thought I was going to have to so can we talk about New Nightmare later on this week? Because I didn't watch it yet. But I got it in today. And I have a feeling that the two of us are actually going to differ on this one a little bit, because I actually enjoyed this movie quite a bit.
I did not enjoy this movie. I actually did not like the idea I actually this idea, if I remember correctly, Wes Craven had for Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, where he was going to make it kind of like a meta film where it was going to be based in reality, and the characters were going to be playing themselves. And it was, I guess we should give a little background. I mean, basically, this movie is about Heather Langenkamp's character. Well, actually, I'm sorry, Heather Langenkamp playing Heather Langenkamp. You know, so she's playing herself, and she's the actress who played Nancy in the first movie and the third movie. The story is basically she's, a retired movie star, or, I don't guess she doesn't have anything going on really, and her husband is a special effects artist, and everybody's kind of playing themselves. Wes Craven's in the film; he plays himself, and the idea is that Freddy is sort of like the Freddy movies are over, but the entity that is Freddy is sort of like a spiritual character that is looking to get back into the lives of the people that were involved in the film, and needs a movie or needs some sort of connection to come alive. It's like a demon basically, and so it starts attacking Heather's, like her husband and her son, and it's sort of the sense of like it's coming into the real world, and so she consults the guy John Saxon, who played her father in the first few movies. He's in it, and she consults Wes Craven, and Wes Craven kind of explains and see, that's where it really lost me, I think, was the scene with her and Wes Craven. Like, I don't think he's the type of guy that should be an actor. He doesn't have the acting chops, and it just felt really weird, like that whole scene where he's explaining to her like what Freddy is, and it just seems so forced, and like they were really trying, and it was kind of an interesting, unique idea, but I don't think it was a good idea, personally.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that this is a top-notch movie by any stretch of the imagination, and the storyline is a little convoluted, to say the least. It's the thing I was thinking of when I was watching this. By the time you get to the end of the movie, the storyline is so intertwined into itself, because it's basically what it is you have these people who are playing essentially fictitious versions of themselves. I think Heather had mentioned in the movie that she was doing TV work at the time. One of the executives at New Line Cinema was proposing to her to come back for Wes Craven's next movie, The New Nightmare. And it was like you were saying too, like with the poster art, they weren't coming right out and saying that it was going to be a Freddy movie, because everybody kept saying, well, Freddy's dead. And so they were making this movie that was like you had said, it was this next stage of Freddy. It got kind of weird by the end of the movie, because you had this movie that's about these people that are making this movie that's going to be sort of a sequel to movies that they made in the past. By the end of the movie, Heather Langenkamp's character gets a copy of the script, and the script is real life. So it's a movie about them making a movie, but the movie that they're making is about real life. And it's just like, it gets really kind of like, what? It gets so confusing to where it's almost like if you actually like sit down and try to figure out what's happening in Back to the Future, you're like, but that doesn't make any sense, right? I have no idea what the hell's going on.
I don't know. I didn't care for that this approach to the franchise.
And I didn't read any into it too much. One of the things that I was trying to figure out, again, because I was kind of slacking off on it when I didn't have a chance to, is I wonder if the direction that they took with this movie was because, it's one of these things where they, I'm assuming New Line Cinema approached Wes Craven and said, hey, we want to make another Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And I'm assuming that probably part of the reason this got made was Wes Craven probably went to the studio and said, "Hey, I have this horror movie I want to make, and it's called what was the original title going to be? Scary Movie for Scream." And I'm assuming the theater or the studio went, "Okay, cool, yeah, we'll make that movie if you make another Freddy movie." So I wonder if that's what happened, and because if you read any of the stuff about this one, is that, you know, this is a Wes Craven story again. So he wrote it and directed it. And so part of the portrayal of Freddy in this movie, because his look is different again, which we were talking about how his look from part 5 and part 6 was a little bit different from some of the previous movies, but the makeup is completely different in this movie, and then his wardrobe is also different as well. So he still has the iconic fedora on and the red and green sweater on, but he also has this like trench coat thing on for a lot of the movie. And he no longer has a glove in this movie. In this movie, he has his burned hand that has claws coming out of his fingertips. I didn't really get a good clip and see, or a good close enough look and see if he like had anything on his fingers at all besides the claws coming out of him. But
well, he's got like, it's sort of like an organic type look where like the claws are kind of coming out of his hand, like you see like bone and tissue and all that stuff. Kind of, it's sort of like, instead of the glove being something separate, like something he puts on, it's like something that's part of him, like kind of grown out of him, which I wasn't a big fan of. I think they should have stuck with the glove. I did think that the trench coat look was okay, and actually the trench coat was based off of the guy who, when Wes Craven, when Wes Craven was a little kid, the guy who inspired the look for Freddy, you know, later on, and when he wrote that screenplay and was directing that film, he had an experience when he was a little kid where he looked out his window of his apartment building and he saw this hobo rattling around outside, and the guy was wearing a trench coat and a fedora, and then kind of gave him this evil, eerie, like look at him. And that's kind of how he came up with the Freddy character, was because of this guy. That guy was wearing a trench coat, so he kind of went back to that look that he remembers from, you know, that person that he saw that you know, helped him create the character. So I thought the trench coat was okay. What I hated though was the texture. Well, the glove, I didn't like that it didn't exist, and like you said, it was a claw, and I do believe there was a blade coming out of his thumb as well. But I really didn't like the facial texture that they gave him. It was like more of like a, gosh, I don't even know how to explain it, but like part 5, it had like these open giant red wounds. Well, it was like that, even more so, as opposed to like that grisly burned look that, you know, we're more familiar with Freddy.
Yeah, he didn't look burned at all. He looked a good example of how to describe what he looked like, and this would be, if you ever been to one of those Body Works exhibits at a museum where they have, you know, like they show the different animals or humans like without skin. That's kind of what he looks like in this, is, you know, not a burn victim, but like he was more or less skinned alive. But yeah, I mean,
yeah, you see like a lot of like that muscle tissue on his cheeks, and is that kind of like red, real dark red kind of muscle tissue look, which kind of, to me, it took away from the Freddy look. I know they were trying to, you know, mix it up a little bit, but yeah, I wasn't a fan. I actually have that mask too. I bought the new Nightmare mask. It was, and they sold the glove too, like the long, like it like went all the way down to your elbow. It was like a whole arm long glove that you could get to put the blades and the skeleton hand and all that to give it that look that he has in the movie. And I just was like, I don't want that. One of the things for me with horror movies is my monsters have to look cool. They have to look the way that they should look. like for example, like the original Halloween. The only there's so many Halloween movies, and only the first two movies use the original William Shatner mask. And even though the second one's not like the greatest film ever, I really like it mainly because Michael Myers looks so cool in it because he's wearing the original mask, and it's like that's what I think of. And in the later films, they start making different masks, and different molds and all that, and it just doesn't look the way it's supposed to. And like Friday the 13th, after like Jason Goes to Hell, he had a whole different look I wasn't very, very fond of. And it kind of goes along the same lines with this Freddy movie. It was, they changed his look to an extent where it just, to me, it wasn't cool any longer. It wasn't what I wanted. And
I just envisioned you back in 1994 sitting in like your senior English class or whatever, chatting with somebody else before the bell rings and be like, no, I didn't like it. Didn't look like Freddy at all. I want my money back, damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think gosh, when did I see this movie? Because it came out when I was a senior, so that's weird. Like, yeah, I think I'm having a memory of watching it that didn't actually exist. That's kind of weird. Because it wouldn't have been in the house that I'm thinking of. Okay. Well, that's interesting. But yeah, I do remember being... I did see this later on video. I never saw it in the theater, and I think I thought it was okay back then, but it was towards that period of time where I was sort of done with all this.
I don't think I saw it in the theater at all. I don't remember having any... I don't have any memory of seeing it in the theater, and... my wife, who I was dating back in 1994, she is not a fan of horror at all. And the one character out of all of the horror characters that she is the least fond of is Freddy Krueger.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she grew up in the country, and she used to babysit, and I don't know which one it was. It was probably for... part 5 or maybe part 6, but there was like TV spots that would come on TV when she was babysitting these kids, like in this farmhouse, like out in the middle of nowhere, and just scared the shit out of her. So there's no way I was gonna be like, hey, let's go see the new Freddy movie.
Right.
The one thing that I noticed again with this one, which I thought was going to be a little bit different, because this one did open up with, was it 2 or 3 kills right off the bat in the very opening sequence there? And at first I was like, oh, finally a Nightmare on Elm Street is going to have a high body count. But no, they did not. Again, the kills were relatively low. I don't know if that's on purpose or if that's just one of the things, with the Freddy kills, because usually the Freddy kills are kind of unique per character.
Yeah.
So if it's like, okay, so we're just going to put a lot of time and effort into each kill, so then, us only having 4 or 5 kills in a movie compared to, 10 in a Halloween movie is, that's fine. But it's just one of those things that doesn't take anything away from it. It's really interesting that you don't really get a high body count in Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
Yeah, that's true. I guess, I mean, 4 was pretty... Seemed like there were quite... I guess not.
No, yeah, it's not in none of them. It's never really been...
Not hugely, like not Friday the 13th level. Body
Right.
count, because that one had quite a few, especially you're getting up into part 5, and I think part 5 was one of the highest body counts, if I remember correctly, but I don't know. But yeah, maybe. Well, this one was supposed to kind of take the film into more of a suspense kind of thriller type horror film. So I think that they were purposely, not going too crazy with it, and they were. Wes Craven at this point, I think he was trying to take it a little bit more into, a little bit more of away from the typical slasher film. What Freddy had become at this point. He was trying to change it up a little bit, make it a little bit more scary. And in that sense, I think he kind of, he kind of did what he was hoping to do with it, because he did bring it back to a little bit more of a scarier Freddy as opposed to what we had seen, 4, 5, and 6. And right. I don't recall this Freddy doing many one-liners and things like that. I think that was pretty much over by this point. So in that sense, I give him kudos for really, trying to bring it back to more of a horror type of film. But for me, this one just seems a little out of place, and I wasn't a big fan of the whole let's make everything real and let's use the characters' real name, the actors and actresses' real names, and all of that. So, but yeah, so it is what it is.
And the other thing, though, there are two things with this one that I didn't like. One is Miko Hughes, who was the same kid from Pet Sematary.
Yeah, right.
He's Nancy's. He is Heather Langenkamp's kid in this movie. I thought that kid was horrible in this movie.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I wasn't a big fan of the kid. I thought the kid didn't really add too much to the
this
film.
Is going to sound horrible, but when I was watching this, the thing I kept thinking every time that stupid kid was on the screen was like, I would rather have that kid from the Babadook in this movie than have that kid play this part, because he's just horrible.
Yeah.
And if anybody remembers us talking about the Babadook episode, I was not a fan of that kid at all.
Yeah, you did not like him.
But I thought that kid kind of just, he wasn't a good actor in this movie at all. He was a little kid, but he didn't do a very good job in his scenes at all. But the other thing that I actually kind of wanted more of in this movie was I wanted more Freddy. You didn't really have Freddy come out until the last 20 minutes of the movie, and then, of course, he's in the entire last, act of the movie. But up until then, it was kind of just like a tease.
There could have been a little bit more Freddy, and a little bit less of the, running around trying to figure things out. And I don't know, like all the cameos, or I guess they weren't really cameos because they were the characters in this film, but that to me kind of took away from it as well.
Yeah, and one of the other things that would have been kind of cool with this one is because this one, even though it is a sequel, it went in a different direction than they had been going into up to this point. But they didn't do the whole Halloween thing where they were just like, okay, you know what? Those last 4 movies actually didn't happen. We're going to pretend like they did. This one, they kept talking about, like, oh, the 6 movies. And it would have been cool if they would have had people from the other movies in this one rather than just have Heather Langenkamp and then John Saxon in this one. It would have been cool if they would have had, like, Patricia Arquette or any of those characters, rather than just having the 2 from the very first one.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, it would have been much better had they've done that. I totally agree. I think overall this film, the reason why it didn't work for me is like it pulls you out of I'm not a big fan of okay, so you're going to tell me that all those movies were fake. I know they were fake. Now you're going to tell me that the actors and actresses are going to say that, oh, that was all fake. And I just, to me, when it does that, it's like the whole idea. It's almost like one of those movies where you're watching the whole thing, and at the very end, somebody wakes up and it's like, oh, it was all just a dream. And it's like that's the kind of thing. It just, to me, it takes away from everything that I had just watched and just seen, and I'm like, yeah, not a fan. To me, it was kind of an interesting concept, and I know Wes Craven had been talking about doing this for a while. I knew he wanted to do this because originally, I believe the Part 3 script was going to be like this, where Freddy coming into the real world. But I just personally just don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it works for this type of film. And
I was watching this and it got started and stuff. I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I wonder if we're actually going to have an episode after part 3 that we are actually raving about a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and then as we're getting ready for this one, you were like, "Oh, it was horrible." I was like, "Oh, really?"
That's funny.
I wouldn't say it was a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely was. At least to me, anyway, it was definitely better than 4, 5, and 6.
See, to me, like those like 4 especially, even though I'm not a big fan of 4, like 4 to me was like the epitome of that era of those films, and it was like, well, yeah, it wasn't that great, but you know, that's what that character is like at that point. You know, that's when you think of that. When you think of that character, that's, you know, what you're thinking of is pretty much what you see in part 4. Would you agree?
Yeah, there were a few aspects of this one that I didn't like, but yeah, other than maybe it's just because I'm not really that big of a Freddy fan, so it was kind of nice to have a different take on it. Which I guess at the same time, if I would have something like this would have happened with Friday the 13th movie or a Halloween movie, I probably would have been like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, right, exactly. And I think that was the issue. Can you imagine had they have done this? Well, you know, in the same way, like Jason Goes to Hell, it's kind of like the same thing in my opinion, where they turn it into such a different direction where he's like his spirit jumps from body to body, and it's like, yeah, that's not Jason. That's not how it works. And that's kind of along the lines of like around this period of time what horror movies were doing. You know, they were going along this, you know, this whole place with the whole idea of let's kind of mix it up and try to make things different and all that. And I don't know, I think it just didn't work, in my opinion. It's almost along the lines, I guess you could say, of even like the Thorn in the Halloween movies. It's like such an added thing with the with the films at this point that they changed it up so much, you know.
Oh yeah, a little bit, yeah. So one of the things in this movie is Heather Langenkamp has kept calling what did they say, like an over-aggressive fan or something?
Yes, well, like a stalker.
It was a stalker, yeah, but they kept referring to it as a fan, which I didn't like that aspect of it. I mean, if you're going to say that she has a stalker, then say she has a stalker. I mean, that was an issue even in the 90s. I mean, that was an issue that some celebrities had. I don't know if Heather Langenkamp ever actually had a stalker, but I mean, I know that, like, well, Danielle Harris famously had a stalker that she was even like on Dr. Phil talking about at one point. So I was trying to...
Danielle Harris, really? She was on Dr. Phil?
Yeah, she had a stalker like in the 90s. So I was trying to figure out if she actually had a stalker in real life at all. I don't think she did. I didn't like that aspect that they kept saying that whatever they kept calling it, over-aggressive fan or whatever they kept calling it. It was like, right. It's a stalker. Call him a stalker. Heather Langenkamp's supposed to be playing Heather Langenkamp, but I don't know if you picked up on this at all or not. And I don't really have anything else to reference this against because I haven't really seen much else of Heather Langenkamp's body of work. But to me, it really seemed like she was playing Nancy the whole movie.
Yeah, I can kind of see what you're saying like that. Like, I mean, because she definitely did come off as Nancy, in my opinion. And I personally, to be honest with you, she gets a lot of slack. People kind of are flack on her acting chops, and she's, you know, a lot of people make fun of her performance in the first film and the third film. I personally always thought she was pretty good, and she really is kind of like the face of A Nightmare on Elm Street outside of Freddy. None of the other final girls, I mean, there were some good ones here and there, but none of them quite lived up to, I think, Nancy in terms of, you know, her Heather Langenkamp's portrayal of that character. But I agree. I see what you're saying. She did kind of come off as Nancy, and that's kind of how I saw her as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's just how she is in real life. I don't know. Yeah. I guess we'll find out in a couple of weeks when we hang out with her.
Yeah, I wonder if she'll put the glove on.
I don't know. I told you before. That's what I said before, though. I mean, I'm just gonna see if she'll just come and live with me, just hang out. I don't want to be like come off as like a stalker, you know. I'll ask nice and stuff.
Right.
Hey, we got room in the back seat. You want to come, you know, hang out?
Yeah.
You could be a co-host on the podcast with us. We'll
that would be really cool to get her on the show.
Horror Heads with Heather Langenkamp. That's what we just changed the name of the show to.
Yeah, pretty cool.
We'll probably get some more listeners that way.
Yeah, I think we would.
I personally enjoyed this addition into the series, so I'm going to say that I'm going to give this one a thumbs up for me.
I'm going to have to go opposite you on this one, and I know I gave the last one, which I know we differed on Freddy's Dead in terms of, I gave that one a thumbs up. This one I do have to go thumbs down, and the only reason I do that is because cool idea, but it just wasn't executed well. And I know a lot of people like this film, and I get it. I understand that. It's just, for me, this is one of those movies where I'd watch it once, and that would be it. Like, I really don't have to see this movie ever again.